Although we learned some editing functions that you can do with the source monitor and project panel, most of your editing will take place in the timeline. In an earlier lesson, we learned how to create sequences that appear in the timeline. In this lesson, we're going to delve in and start using the timeline to edit and create a project. In this lesson, we'll learn about the timeline controls, customizing the timeline, adding single audio and video tracks, and how to change the timecode display. This is the timeline. We've labeled the different buttons and controls for you. You can reference this as we work with the timeline throughout the remainder of the course. As the course progresses, you'll learn to use all the tools and features we've labeled. For now, let's cover a brief description of some that you might not recognize by their name alone. Time Ruler displays time within the timeline. It goes from left to right. Timeline Panel menu offers configuration options for the timeline. Toggle Track turns a track on and off. You won't see the content in the program monitor. Solo Track plays the audio for the track only during playback. Mute Track mutes that track during playback. Toggle Sync Lock toggles Sync Lock on and off. Sync Lock keeps tracks in sync during edits. Toggle Track Lock toggles locking on and off. When you lock a track, you cannot edit the content. Track Header is the area to the left of the timeline track. Timecode shows you where the playhead is in your project. Snap controls if items are snapped to each other when moved. Add Marker adds a marker to the timeline. Having the right tools and features to work on your project is important. However, it's also important to be able to customize the different panels to make editing easier. Earlier in the course, we learned how to customize the source monitor and project panel by configuring them. Now we're going to learn how to customize the timeline. We're going to learn how to customize track height, increase the height of audio or video tracks, increase or decrease the height of a single track, turn track thumbnails on or off, changing the appearance of thumbnails, and customizing audio tracks. As you can see, the track height is small by default. You can't see any of the content because they're so small. To increase the track height, click the Timeline Display Settings button. This opens the Settings menu. Select Expand All Tracks from the menu. As you can see, the height of a track is expanded. We can now see some content. We have one video track, then an audio track that shows the left and right speakers. If you want to minimize the tracks, go back to the Timeline Display Settings menu, then select Minimize All Tracks. To expand either video or audio tracks, grab one of the edges of the vertical zoom bar for either the audio or video track. Drag inward if you want to increase the size, and drag outward if you want to decrease the size. Sometimes you may only want to expand the height of one track. Perhaps it's the one you're working on. To do this, go to the track header area. Put the mouse pointer on the track you want to expand. Scroll down with your mouse and it will expand. By default, whenever a video track is shown in the timeline, you can see thumbnails that are visible when you expand the track. Here you can see the thumbnail of our video. These video thumbnails are enabled by default. However, you can disable them and re-enable them whenever you want. To disable the thumbnails, click the Timeline Display Settings button and then select Show Video Thumbnails. If there's a check mark beside it before you select it, then selecting it will disable the feature. Click to put a check mark beside it to enable the feature. You can also customize the way thumbnails appear in the timeline. To do this, go to the Panel menu. Choose one of these three options. Video head and tail thumbnails show a thumbnail of the first frame and last frame. There's blank space in between. You'll see a video thumbnail at the beginning, and then if you scroll all the way to the end, there will be another video thumbnail at the end. Video head thumbnail shows the first frame and then blank space. Continuous video thumbnails shows all thumbnails in the clip. You can also customize the appearance of your audio tracks in Premiere Pro. Right now we see the waveform of our audio track. The waveform you see is called a rectified audio waveform. The positive and negative values of the waveform are combined so you only see a single positive value from the bottom of the track. However, you can also view the traditional waveform if you wish. The rectified waveform is the one shown by default. To see the traditional waveform, go to the panel menu and deselect Rectified Audio Waveform. If you want to switch back to rectified audio waveforms, simply go to the panel menu again. Place a checkmark beside Rectified Audio Waveforms. The number of video and audio tracks displayed on the timeline can be controlled by creating a preset. Tracks can always be added or deleted while you're working in Premiere Pro as well. To add a single track, right-click in the video track header area to add a video track. Select Add Track from the menu. To add a single audio track, right-click in the audio track header area and select Add Track. If you want to add multiple tracks, right-click in the header area and select Add Tracks. You'll then see the Add Tracks dialog box. In the Add field, enter the number of tracks you wish to add. Select the placement of these tracks in the Placement field. Do the same thing for audio tracks in the Audio Tracks section. For audio tracks, select a track type. Premiere Pro has 5 different audio tracks. Standard can have both stereo and mono audio tracks. This is also the default setting. Mono has 1 audio channel. A stereo file is converted to mono in Premiere Pro. 5.1 is 5.1 surround sound tracks. This includes 3 front audio channels. These are left, center, and right. It also includes 2 rear channels, left and right, plus a low-frequency subwoofer channel. Adaptive can have mono or stereo tracks. Audio submix track is a synthetic track that doesn't have any audio other than the audio that is sent to it from other audio tracks. If you want to delete multiple tracks, click in the header area, then select Delete Tracks. You'll then see the Delete Tracks dialog box. Identify the tracks that you want to delete. Click OK when you're finished. In Premiere Pro, you can choose from 2 different timecode display formats. These are drop frame timecode and non-drop frame timecode. Let's look at the difference between the two in order to help you decide which you should use. Drop frame timecode should be used if you're creating a video that has to be a certain time length, such as 90 minutes. Here's why. Timecode really has little to do with the actual time. Instead, they mark specific frames in the video which occur at 29.97 frames per second. That means 30 frames of a 29.97 video take almost a second, but not a complete second. A 1-hour video actually has the time of 60 minutes and 3.6 seconds. If your video will be broadcasted and you only have 1 hour, this could be a problem. Drop code time skips ahead 2 frames every minute, except for the 10th minute. Frames are not dropped. Don't worry, the timecode jumps. Drop frame timecode is displayed with semicolons. Non-drop frame timecode uses colons. To choose a timecode display format, go to the timecode in the timeline. You'll see your mouse pointer change to a hand with 2 arrows. Don't click your mouse. Instead, right-click. You can then choose drop frame or non-drop frame from the menu.